Welcome to this session on arrangement. This is the part where you've already laid down different instrument tracks on your piece of music and you want to rearrange them to create a longer form piece of music which is more interesting to yourself and to your listeners. It's nowadays it's very easy to take a, some series of loops, stack them one on top of each other in your software, and you get a sound that's something like this. If you are more creative, you might have maybe stack them up, not immediately one after another, but maybe adding them on. But in a way, you're still pretty much going to be wondering, how do I make this interesting to the listener? Because you are going to have to contend with something which is basically a mess of sound. So you start off with one, then you add a second layer. Then soon you're wondering, what do I do next? It's just going to continue and loop around again and again and again. So really the key to this is, first of all, do you have all the vertical layers before we go into the horizontal planning? All of these loops come with your Ableton Live 10 suite. If you have the Ableton Live 10 suite, you will have all of these loops, and you can find them if you go to packs and you've downloaded the build and drop pack. The build and drop pack contains a whole lot of EDM kind of loops. So for example, under samples, under loops, I found this particular drum loop under full loops. It's literally the first loop. Under percussion, I found this. Under tops, I found this. In music, I had a bass. At this time, it's worth noting that your beats can have a basic layer, which is this, and I'm going to rename it beat. It can have a layer of percussion on top of it. I'm naming it now percussion. And to rename, it's just a matter of right click and go down to rename, or you can see a shortcut Control R. Then you can have this thing called a top. A top is literally what you heard just now, the top part of the sound. So these things added together give you a very full kind of EDM beat and rhythm. Then you also want to have a bass, and the bass is this one. You need the bass in most EDM. Well, you need the bass 99.9% of the time in EDM because that's keeping the bottom of the music running. And in a lot of music also, the bass will help you move things along. You note that this bass is, I'm going to give you a bass that's in C. So this is the bass that's in C. And you can see the letter C is there to show you that it's in the key of C. I'm also going to go to the next one, which is pad loops. And I'm going to find a piano chords, which is in C. And these are my chords. So I've got bass and piano, and then I've got a synth on top. So synth loops, I'm looking for something in C as well. Okay, there we go. So that's bass, piano, and synth. 3 layers at least. And you can put more. And interestingly enough, you don't really need to put that many layers to get a really full sound. You listen to this, this is already very packed. In 6 tracks that you have here, you've got a very, very full sound. And so it's not the number of layers that you add on, it's really what you do with them. Because here you have already 6 layers that give you a nice vertical stacked up feel. And in a way, if you left out some of these, if you had less than this, yeah, it would probably sound a little empty. But if you have more than this, it might get heavy. So you also note that while they're all playing, they're all max. You look at this part here where the volume is. But on the master, I'm not overloading. So if you are wondering, wow, why does my master channel, which is actually all of these channels put together, always overload? It's because when all of these are maximum, of course, added together, they'll be overloading the master. What I do at master is I choose this thing called audio effects utility. And when I bring in a utility, I turn the gain to -9. -9 means that I'm actually pushing down the total volume by -9, and that means it will never ever go red in the master, so it will always sound nice. uh, no guarantee it will sound nice, it always will not be distorted. Okay, so now that you've gotten the vertical parts of the song, now we're going to look at the horizontal, and let's actually close this part. You can actually click on this arrow and then go. You got more space in your arrangement view, and you want to actually think now of the horizontal. And what I do is I add locators. So you can put different locators to mark different points in time, and I'm going to put markings, and see, actually I can number it. What I'll do here is I'll put a build, I put a drop. So if you want to stretch out your song more, instead of doing it at 8 bar intervals, which I'm doing, you can do it at 16 bar intervals. See, I have 8 bar intervals. I'm at 9, I'm at 17, I'm at 25 and 33, but you can make it 16 bar intervals instead. 8 and 16 are very comfortable spacings that we've gotten very used to in dance music, electronic music. So I am going to take this, move them away. I'm going to come in quite heavy with the beat and the bass. And so this is some conscious choices I'm going to make. I'm going to stretch it out until I reach the build. I'm going to decide that my piano chords come in here on top of my bass. And I'm going to decide that I'm going to put in this jacked percussion just before the build. Then I've decided when I hit the drop, I'm not going to play the piano anymore, but all the different rhythm elements will run. I'm also going to resume the bass again. Now, how do I make these decisions? Well, it's really a matter of what do you want to create at that point in time. You notice that I don't have the piano and the synth running at the same time because each of them has their own melody. If I'm playing them both at the same time, I'm basically wasting the melody that I have. Instead, I can let each sound out by itself. I'm also not playing every single instrument at the same time, except at the drop part where I want it to have a heavy impact. So let's hear what we have. Now this build part, in the packs, there's also builds and risers. So here we go, I've got a build here. And I can probably add in something which will give me a more relaxed sound during it's a bit heavy. So this is a nice pad that I'm going to put in here during the build part, and it's going to help me to create a sense of break so that I can build up from here. So this is all still inside the same pack, build and drop. Okay, so let's close this and get back to what the whole thing sounds like. So there are a few things that you're going to note here. You have a build, you have a drop, but this synth here is in the wrong key. So it's actually causing you some discomfort. And that's because if you remember, this was actually in A minor, not in C. So I'm going to click on the clip and I'm going to transpose it up by 3 to bring it into C. If you're not sure the relationship between A and C, it's from A to C is 3 steps. You can actually Google this. Also, I'm noting that in between my different sections, I don't really have anything that tells me I'm now moving into a new section. So what I'm going to do is that on my beat, I'm actually going to break it up. If I click on this dividing line at my number 1 divider and I Control E, I will split the loop and I can actually zoom in, I can actually cut off part of the beat. So I'm going to zoom in a bit more so that I will just cut off one beat. And I'm going to do this every time before I start a new section, except at the build. Also, I feel that I want a bit more of a build. I want a bit more of a something announcing that my build is coming. So I want something in from the one shots. I want something that is too much. Okay, so one of these. So if I can put this in, I also need something to land where that break starts. Okay, so this is a crash. And probably one more than one crash. Okay, so let's put them. This crash needs to be here. going to insert more audio tracks so that I have space to put the crashes and that riser. So now I have things building up before I hit that nice break. So you'll notice also that this thing, I allow quite a lot of repetition, because when you repeat, the audience actually gets to hear more of the tune and get to enjoy it. When more you hear, the more you enjoy it, to a limit. So don't keep on changing your melodies. Don't keep on changing your melodies. Do some repetition. So this is an introduction to arrangement. And if you're wondering how do I complete out the song, basically what I would do is I would take this whole section here and I would right click and I would duplicate. And here basically now you've actually doubled the length of your song. And then you can start to move things around. So don't be afraid to repeat. That you repeat, the audience gets to hear more of the song and to enjoy more of the song. See here now that if you got this repeated part, I can just remove things. I can delete them, different sections. You don't feel obliged to always keep changing the melody, and in fact don't always change the melody because the audience can't catch it. So try this on your own, try this with other loops. Make sure you have vertically enough things to arrange first. You need to have your beats and percussion. You need to also have a bass line and at least 2 synthesizers. Then you can add in other things, and also make sure they're all in the same key. And also remember that your master track should have a -9 on the gain. So try it out, enjoy, and see what you come up with.